It occurred to me the other week when I was thinking about which speaker to have this month that pretty much everyone other than myself has spoken at the London meetup group. And a lot of you have joined and come along for the ride, but not really realized why we're here in the first place. And so, yeah, my journey is important to me, obviously, and it's important to where we are today, but I don't want it to be all about me. I want it to be about what you can take from the journey, which I think is an important thing from a lot of this space, because self-motivation is obviously the strongest motivation of all. Because if I hadn't got ill, I would have carried on eating pizzas, eating Chinese takeaway, and drinking lots of alcohol and doing lots of drugs. But we find ourselves in a place that self-reflection and study pays off when you share it openly to the outside world. So that's why we're here today. The meetup group was originally founded so that I could have 5 or 10 people, crazy people like me in London, and have a social circle, what it was like when I went to the Bulletproof conference in Pasadena a couple of years ago. And it's gone from 5 people to 10 people to nearly 1,000 people since we upgraded the name to Health Optimisation and Biohacker London. So I mean, I think it shows that while I'm working on a summit, this thing is completely separate, and it is bringing awareness, but really it's about having an amazing community, and that's what's so important for us all. Because like, how awesome is it here to hang around and just chat, even if someone wasn't speaking. So anyway, I mean, today's talk is basically about quick wins, because biohacking is super down the rabbit hole in tracking so many different points of data or taking all these different supplements. But if you haven't got the 5 basics right, well, there's no point doing any of this. And I think when I spoke at Bulletproof Upgrade Conference a few months ago, it was a risky move doing a surface level talk like this about the 5 fundamentals, because everyone else was super down the rabbit hole talking about non-native EMFs or metabolic autophagy or this, that, and the other. And people are paying $1,500 a ticket. So it's kind of risky going against the grain and doing something back to basics, but I think that's why it's so important to do it. So if there's one thing you take from today, it's that get these things done right. If you haven't got them right, get them done right, and then do all the fancy stuff. Because like glutathione is great. It will help you massively in your journey, but you've got to get these things done right. So the 5 fundamentals, hacking biohacking. So by the end of this talk, you'll know how to do all these cool things here. So boost your energy, your immune system, cut back supplements where needed, get rid of headaches, which is a big thing for me, and help reprioritize your health regimen. I've read that word clearly and not heard many people say it, and I heard Ben Greenfield do the same thing on a podcast this week, which is quite funny. So, okay, 1 second. Okay, the clicker's decided to stop working. So, I mean, I've started, run, and sold several companies along my journey, and I've learned a lot along the way, and still learning massively. But one key takeaway from it is that I've always been a 200-mile-an-hour entrepreneur, business builder, whatnot. And energy has always been like the main thing for me. My body composition hasn't been really important. It's always been about immune system and energy and going 200 miles an hour. And when I got sick and the doctor shrugged his shoulders and said, "Tim, I don't know what to tell you next," I had to start researching, which is what I did for several years. And then I heard about a crazy thing called Bulletproof Coffee, which kind of got me into this space. I heard about Hyperbaric on a podcast and tried it out and loved it. Opened a Hyperbaric clinic, which has been quite fun. And I tracked, up until very recently, 35 points of data every single day. The thing is what you focus on is whatever you put your energy into is what grows. And if it's negativity, it'll be negative. If it's positivity, it'll be positive. If you look for the good in people, you'll see the good in people. If you look for the bad in people, you'll see the bad in people. And it's the same when you're tracking your health data. If you're focusing on your urine pH or your specific gravity or all these things, that's where your mind is going to be. And you have to learn to let the fuck go sometimes. So I would consider myself, in terms of topics within biohacking, instead of being so far down the rabbit hole talking about the specific science in everything, I like to curate other people's stuff and bring awareness to it so people can go off and explore and do the science themselves. And I think that's, like, for instance, Dave Asprey has been a great one of that, and sure, he's gone down the rabbit hole in many cases. Ben Greenfield also does that, and while I'm not placing myself alongside them, they have shared so much information that a lot of us know this stuff. And sure, you can always push back about everything. And when I was on a podcast a few months ago, someone asked me about grounding, and I said, well, actually, I don't know the full science of it. All I know is it's awesome and it's worked for me for my inflammation and my sleep. And I said, but let's do a follow-up podcast in a few weeks once I've researched it. So I listened to every podcast I could and read everything I could and destroyed everything online about it, and now I can talk about it openly. But I don't have the luxury to do that on every topic I ever hear about. A lot of the things come from you guys or from podcasts and whatnot. So anyway, some of the topics I've learned about, I love it when the clicker stops working, are these. Mercury toxicity, methylation and genetic variation optimization, which is a mouthful, megadosing iodine, liver flushes, which is probably the weirdest one of the lot for you. Who's done a liver flush here, just out of interest? It's a pretty good number. Yeah, thyroid, adrenal, gut optimization, and reversing eczema and migraines. Obviously, the ketogenic diet is a big part of it. Hyperbaric oxygen therapy. And recently, my newest addition is proteolytic enzymes, which I've been actually spending the last month pretty much researching, which are pretty incredible. I'll come on to that later, maybe. So the key takeaways from today are biohacking is mimicking a natural environment in an unnatural world. And everything that we're doing is basically reversing the technology that we've put in place already, such as red light therapy is because we're not getting to see enough sunlight. Blue light therapy, sad lighting, is because we don't see sunrise. Blue blocking glasses to stop the technology from having your iPhone to your face like this every day, which means that you produce your own melatonin. And biohacking isn't overclocking the body either. So a lot of people say that if you biohack, sure, you can go at 300 miles an hour instead of 200 miles an hour. But one of the things is that we should operate, say, if we operate at level here, this is where we should operate at if we lived in a cave in the middle of nowhere, no EMFs and no toxins. We'd operate here. As a result, many of us operate here instead, and we don't even realize it. And when you start doing nootropics or breathing exercises or all of these things, you start operating a little bit better. And then you're looking for 1% increases. And the point is biohacking is to get you back to where you should be. And it's not about overclocking the body. Sure, if you do, by taking modafinil or aniracetam or anything like that, it's borrowed energy, so you will crash afterwards. Any of you that's done any illegal substances here, not that I have either, you'll know that if you get too high, you'll have a low afterwards. And I think that's one of a key takeaway from this as well. So, yeah. So, I've got Greg Potter to thank wherever he is for this one. Because I think the wording of how much would you pay for a drug that could do all of these things, I mean, if it was a supplement or a drug, you would pay quite a lot. Something to boost your immune system, reverse daily damage, make your face look more attractive, help you shed fat and gain muscle, make you happier and be in control of your emotions, which I think is a big takeaway from this. Improve your ability to understand others, mental clarity, improve your sex life, reduce the need for meditation. I mean, who would be willing to pay good money for a supplement that did all of that stuff? A couple of you, sure, okay. So number one is the first fundamental, get this right. If there's only one thing you take from today, get this right. It's the number one for a reason. And a little bit of gamification of knowing actually how well you're doing in terms of data is absolutely critical. Gamification in terms of psychology makes us want to do something more and more. That's why I wear the Aura ring. And who here's got an Aura ring, just out of interest? Okay, about 20% of you. The other 80% go and buy one from Aura. I don't have an affiliate code or anything, but I consider someone a biohacker when they wear an Aura ring, even if it's for a short period of time. So why is sleep optimization so important? Well, I was knackered and I seemed to spend ages in bed. I had a foggy brain, a bad immune system. I never really felt rested. and I knew sleep was a problem, but I didn't know what to do about it, and I needed to hack it. So here's what my bedroom looks like. Is generally 15 to 18 different things, and I've got the Biohacking Handbook to thank for this initial piece of artwork. I've upgraded it to have a few extra things on there. I mean, my favorite are earplugs, silicone earplugs to shut out the outside world. And if you're in a highly stressed job and you're in fight or flight most of the time, when you're asleep, your unconscious is going to be listening out for threats and therefore waking easily. Using silicone earplugs will help switch that off and help you sleep deeper. I've tested it, trust me. Blackout blind is key, especially if you play with a phone late at night, or if you have a late night, if you go to bed too far after sunset, near midnight, a blackout blind is great because it means that you don't get woken by sunrise. Also an earthing bed sheet. I love that thing. It's been with me probably the longest sleep hack out of all of them. And hopefully Alexander Wunsch, Clint Ober, who is the main guy behind grounding, has offered to let us launch the grounding documentary at the Health Optimisation Summit. So anyway, so that's kind of everything. And if you want to know more about this specifically, the Biohacking Handbook by the Biohacker Summit guys over in Scandinavia, they have a whole Bible behind all of biohacking. This is just one page from it. Even though they see me as competition, just going to throw this out there, I'm still happy to promote them because I'm not. So this is a bad day, actually, and I think this was actually Laura.
I knew you were going to say that.
Here she is. Yeah. Yeah, every time we work together, I say, let's have a look at the sleep data, and it's always like 50, 60, and
my sleep is great.
Yeah. Just kidding. So anyway, so this is a bad day, and yeah, so here's one of them. It gives you a sleep score, obviously it gives you a sleep score, so you know how your sleep is impacting your day. I find that when obviously I drink alcohol, my resting heart rate is around about 100 to 110 throughout the night, telling me that it's really not good for me. My heart rate variability is almost zero, showing that it's pretty bad. So I think it's probably the main reason behind why I don't drink alcohol, because I can see it in the data. So it helps me gamify. Obviously, you can track the positive impacts of the biohacks based on the previous slide as well. So by adding in a grounding bed sheet, you can see that you sleep 5% deeper, or you have more REM sleep. All these different things. I mean, Greg, wherever he is, did a talk on sleep optimization more down the rabbit hole with science a few months ago. And I think it's really good to know those points, but focus on the basics. So this is a typical sleep night for me. So, I mean, I managed to get my REM sleep over 40% of my sleep quite consistently now. But all the hard work pays off. And without having the Oura Ring to track this, you just don't know that. I did a podcast this week with Sim, and one of the things that came up was about the psychology of people that look at their data and then feel crap for the day. And they're getting more and more stressed about tracking it because they've got a crap score. From the giggles, obviously it's a thing here as well. The thing is let your data optimize you, not let you optimize your data, sorry, not the data optimize you. You need to be in control of this. So what I do is I check in with myself every morning before I look at the data. And then I say, how do I feel today? Do I feel rested? And then have a guess about what my data would show, and see how close I get. Like, I think yesterday or the day before I got 97 readiness score, which I didn't see coming because I felt like shit. But the point is, it's good to check in beforehand, so that way you're in control. So, further sleep specialists. So, Sachin Panda around circadian rhythm. Matthew Walker, who's speaking in London this week. Apparently there's a few tickets left available for his talk this week. Greg Potter, he's at the back there. He's tucked away. Give us a wave, Greggy. There he is. And read the Biohacking Handbook. That's just to be a well-rounded biohacker. So, back on the theme again. Imagine a hack that can do all of this. Gives you energy, reduces fatigue, boosts your mental clarity, helps your immune system function better, reduces headaches by up to 90%, reduces frequent urination, and reduces the need for drinking so much water. Hydration optimization. It's really misunderstood, and it's one of my favorite topics at the moment, especially around building the summit, getting to know quite a lot of these guys, speaking to Zach Bush, for instance, or Gina, who wrote the book Quench that's recently out, Gerard Pollack, and various other people as well. I mean, it's really interesting to see how misunderstood hydration piece actually is. And it's not about drinking more water. And the more and more I'm going down the rabbit hole with this one specifically, the more interesting it's becoming, because it's about intercellular hydration, which is partly about the minerals being in the cell, opposed to just drinking more and more water, having clear pee, which is what they tell us we should have. Basically, we need water to flush out toxins. And we also need it to transport all the minerals around our body for our electrical system to work. Has anyone ever heard of electrolytes? Yeah, I'd be worried if I heard no. Lucozade has 2 or 3 minerals in it, electrolytes. That gives you some, which throws out the balance of all the others, which can cause frequent urination. And in my journey, I was peeing 30 to 50 times a day. I'm not afraid to say it, but I was at one point, and it was horrific. Every time I drank something, it seemed to come out, and it was a big problem, so I had to figure out how to sort it. And I added each mineral in one by one to see which one made a difference to rebalance, and for me, it was potassium. But then after I'd rebalanced everything, I threw in Totem Sport, which is Quinton Hydration, which is Ben Greenfield actually did a podcast with the main guy behind it this week, or last week, and it's about 78 minerals, along with sea plankton, which are the live enzymes to help your cells take it on. That really rehydrates you from the inside out, opposed to drinking more and more water with less and less minerals in it, which flushes more and more minerals out. You become dehydrated from the inside out. We're not supposed to walk around with a bottle of water everywhere we go. We're supposed to be able to stick our head in a stream and drink 2 or 3 times a day to keep us hydrated and have the minerals from our food. But because of EMFs, because of metals in our mouth, because of the food being farmed, it hasn't got the enzymes in it that break down the proteins, which means we don't get the amino acids right, which means our body doesn't repair properly. And so this is all mixed into this. I mean, our body is basically an energy, is a whole thing of energy that we collect energy from our food sources, we collect it from the sun, and it's an electrical system. And if we don't have the right minerals in our blood, it can't be an electrical system, because it's like having a phone without any wires in it. It just doesn't connect and work properly, which then stresses the adrenals, because you're having to produce adrenaline to keep your body going, opposed to actually just working naturally. So this is why it's so important. As I say, fatigue, if you've got fatigue or chronic fatigue syndrome or any of these things, this is one of the biggest wins that you can ever possibly have after sleep, and they're synergistic. So, from dehydration, 75% of Americans are dehydrated apparently. At 5% dehydration, our brains work 30% slower. And if we're 2% dehydrated, we're 10% down in performance, and we don't get thirsty until over 2%. So before you're thirsty, you're dehydrated. When we're born, we're 90% water. Well, actually, we're 99% water in all. But we're only 50 to 60% when we die. So by the time we're 70, we're 30% dehydrated from the inside out. And being electrical creatures, that's pretty bad. So dry skin, or when you get older, your skin becomes worse. That's partly because of the hydration from the inside out. Also, it causes frequent urination and stresses our adrenals, as I said. So water in the body. So I'm going to fly through this because I'm taking ages on these 2 points. But these are some of the things that water does in the body. And if our liver isn't optimal, or our gut, we don't get the right level of minerals from our food. Due to the crappy food, farmed food, it's deficient. Toxicity such as mercury means that we can't get the minerals in the cell, because mercury competes for some of these things. Standard tap water, don't drink it. Just don't. Seriously, like, it makes me cringe whenever I see anyone drinking tap water, because not only has it got chlorine in it, it's processed, it's dead water. It basically, all it does is it helps flush out the toxins, but because it's got chlorine in it, it actually kills off your gut bacteria. So what that means is you become deficient in certain minerals and nutrients because you haven't got the gut bacteria to break down your food. that on top of your food being low in nutrients means that you're becoming more and more deficient. So most bottled water is actually really low in minerals, and the water industry know that it's about consumption, and consumption is going up and up and up and up, and hydration is coming down and down and down and down. If it's mineral-rich water, such as Topo Chico, which is what I was enjoying in Austin, you don't need to drink so much, and people enjoy it, which is why everyone goes, give me a damn Topo Chico quick. It's because it's high in minerals. It's recently been bought out by a big company, so it'll be interesting to see what happens with that. So yeah, mineral deficient water is actually better for consumption, but not so good for us. So I recommend, and this is down the rabbit hole, metabolomics test, which is an intercellular test to see what you look like on a cellular level, to see what you need to supplement in terms of minerals. So that's how I supplement these days, instead of just chucking more and more supplements in. If you're deficient in potassium in the cell, get potassium in your diet, add it, supplement in it, because you're not getting it from your food, and then fix your gut. So, how I've hacked hydration. Good quality water with mineral content. I always talk about Totem Sport or Kinton hydration. Just listen to Ben Greenfield's podcast from a week ago. That would give you a bit more idea into how cool this stuff is. And also look up Zach Bush. It's amazing, absolutely amazing work. Use a good all-round mineral, obviously. Regular intercellular testing, I appreciate it's a really expensive test, so it's not accessible to everyone. And have your mercury levels tested. I mean, obviously I fix my gut and liver as well, which is an ongoing thing, but the more your gut works, the less you have to supplement and the less stuff you have to do. But that's a whole other talk, as I say. So, Dr. Mark Bubbs, these are the people to look up. James D, whatever it is, I can never pronounce it. Gerard Pollock, who's speaking at the Health Optimisation Summit. Quicksilver Scientific and Cell Nutrition. Buy yourself a Berkey water filter. It takes loads of toxins out, but also some of the minerals, so you have to remineralize. You can use Himalayan rock salt with a plastic teaspoon to help remineralize the water. So, number 3. What about a hack that can do all of this? So, reduce toxic burden and inflammation, take pressure off your immune system, lift brain fog, help digestion, increase energy, reduce anxiety and depression, which this is actually a big one for that, and help with balancing hormones too. Oral and dental optimization. It's number 3 for me for a reason, because it's been a big part of my journey, and I think it's underrated in a lot of places. I really recommend you go and watch the documentary Root Cause. You won't be able to see it on Netflix because they took it down. I wonder why. If you've got metal fillings, get them taken out safely by a holistic dentist. Catherine, who couldn't make it today because she's back in sunny Spain, is someone that you might be able to, that you should speak to. And if you've got any root canals, I would have them looked at. I had one and it infected all up into my sinuses here, and I had to have an operation and a sinus rebuild. Luckily enough, I had stem cell therapy as well to help the bone grow back, but within 2 hours of having this operation and having it all the dead bone cleared out from the root canal, my brain came back alive, and I was working until 2 o'clock in the morning from my hotel room after being under general anaesthetic, and it was the biggest wake-up moment I had had. So it's really, really important that you optimize that, and it's a low-grade infection that people just don't realize there, and the immune system doesn't necessarily pick it up. So it won't show in your CRP tests. My CRP levels are less than 0.5, and yet I had a really bad infection built up. I mean, I would, to biohack around this without knowing that this was a problem, I would obviously take nootropics and hyperbaric oxygen therapy and the ketogenic diet, which is great for mental clarity, but without having the root cause fixed, there was no point other than just to get me by. So, yeah, so it's more important than you realize. I won't bother going through all the points on this one specifically, but here's how I hacked it, obviously. Removed my root canals, cleaned up the previous extractions and cavitations, and like non-holistic dentists don't think that amalgam fillings are an issue. They don't think root canals are an issue, but in my opinion, they are. Mercury, if you drop a thermometer in a school, they evacuate the school pretty quickly. And yet you can have it in a metal filling in your mouth, an inch from your pituitary gland, which regulates your hormones, and we're convinced that it's safe. I would just question that, implore you to question that and start researching more and more. I think it's, well, in Germany, they got everyone to take their metal fillings out. In England, they haven't yet. But if you're pregnant, they say don't have any metal fillings put in. It's illegal. So I think there's something there. Maybe. Obviously, I removed all of those safely. Mercury chelation protocol, which is, again, my entryway into this whole space was around mercury chelation and understanding how to get mercury out, which is a grueling process. And metabolomics test to see where my cells are with mercury now. And I'm much lower, but I've still got more to go. Obviously, I've done hair mineral analysis tests along the way to show how my mercury levels have come down over a period of time, and it's definitely working. And I can attribute the improvements in my immune system as a result. So get that right. So far, sleep, hydration, and oral and dental. So here's what my hair test looks like before and after. So on the left, you can see arsenic was super high, and it's come down on the right here. If this pointer works. No, it's no. Yeah. So arsenic here, and then after, and then mercury as well, as you can see here, down to here. A key thing within mercury chelation, and people say, well, hair mineral analysis tests don't actually work. Well, the thing is, it might show that you're low in mercury, like this. But the point is, you shouldn't have this many deficiencies in minerals, because mercury is already in the cell. So you can't get those in the cell. So until you've got the mercury out, you can't rebalance all your minerals. So bipolar disease, in my opinion, is linked to mercury poisoning very heavily. It's funny enough, if you look at lithium, and this is very consistent within people with high metals, lithium is through, like, literally the most efficient of all. What do they give people with bipolar disease? High dose lithium. Funny that. So, oral and dental specialist to explore further. Christopher Shade, who's coming to London, I'm happy to say. Jose Mendoza. And watch the root cause documentary. Really, the root cause documentary is all you need to watch to have your eyes opened. So, I'm going to skip through all these things you can imagine having, but immune system improvements, more energy, healing quicker, balancing your hormones, making your skin glow, help with high blood pressure, help reset your circadian rhythm, and boost your testosterone. Sunlight optimization. It's underrated big time, more than we realize. And it's more important than just vitamin D. Something I heard yesterday, actually, by Dr. McCullough, sorry, was that vitamin D is low in people that don't get enough sunlight. Taking vitamin D may boost your vitamin D levels, but it doesn't necessarily mean your immune system will work better. It just means your vitamin D levels are higher. Sunlight gives us so much more than we realize. It's not just about a higher vitamin D level and supplementing. Before I optimized this area, I would burn in the sunlight within 5 or 6 minutes. And not to sound like a baby, but I would be crying because it was so painful. I would literally lobster up in no time. And I could never figure out why. I've met people that have had sun allergies that just can't handle the sun. Who here actually can't stay out in the sun long without getting burnt? No, it's a good portion. Well, it's an inflammatory response, and it means that your body's not working right, and you're deficient in something, and it's about figuring out what that is. Big part of it is adding DHA into your diet. I've been testing astaxanthin. Thank you very much, Dr. McCullough, for making that a thing. And when I was in LA last month, I was in the sun between 4 and 6 hours without worrying, and I didn't get burnt. And I had the best tan I've ever had after optimizing this. It also means that my body's working significantly better because I'm not having a nasty inflammatory response to the sun. So it's an area I really recommend looking into is DHA specifically. Thank you, Jack Cruz, for that. But the krill oil or astaxanthin, is a good thing to do. I used to wear sunscreen, which used to give me a skin allergy. I was allergic to it, sorry. I was scared of being in the sun. I was literally scared to be in the sun whenever I went away. In fact, it stopped me wanting to go away. My wounds wouldn't heal. I had joint pains, and I was pale as fuck. Optimizing all these things mean I can be out in the world and enjoy the sunshine and actually heal better as a result. Here's why it's so important. So light is bigger than just immune, but blue light wakes the brain up, which is why you have sad light to reset your circadian rhythm. Red light promotes healing, but we don't get enough because we're not around in sunset, and our bodies are covered up when we are. We evolved with natural lighting, like when the sun goes down, there's no blue light, and yet we're playing around with phones and we expect to sleep well. There's actually a study I saw come out this week around it, where school kids were banned from using their phone for 1 day a week, and their sleep was significantly better 1 day a week. It's only that. So sunlight is an energy source, and in Jack Kruse's words is we are collecting sun from every source we possibly can, i.e. whether it be from an orange that's been collecting sunlight for energy or whether it's from the sunlight itself. Plants don't grow without sun, either do we, but it's just not so overnight with us. We need to connect with the earth because that gives us negative electrons, which actually scavenge free radicals, just like when we eat certain foods, which is why when we're in the hot and sunny weather, we seem to want to eat less because actually we're getting more energy from the sun. We don't need to collect it from our food so much, which is why you can, well, it's much easier to fast when you're on holiday. So like, even though you're an all, like for me, in an all inclusive resort in Egypt, food everywhere, and yet I didn't want to eat it. I didn't need it. I mean, yeah, whatever. So, swimming is a massive way of grounding if you're in the sea specifically, because obviously it's connecting with the earth. You just have to drop your phone in the bath or in any water and see how it makes it one big circuit and it stops it working. Well, you can connect with the earth and ground out earthing, and that's great, but imagine if you're in a body of water, what that does for your grounding and help improve your immune system, especially if you're getting sunlight on you at the same time. Here's how I've hacked it. So I stopped wearing sunglasses. Thank you, Dasha. She was like, why are you wearing sunglasses? You're fucking crazy. I don't wear them anymore, and I used to be not used to be able to look at the sun, or should I say walk around without sunglasses on, although they did look good. My eyes couldn't cope with the sun. Now they can. I get out in the sun as much as possible, as much skin as possible. So I stopped using sunscreen, and apparently it's the margarine of the day. It's chemical laden, so even though we're covering up more, skin cancer is more prevalent, even though we're using sunscreen. Something in that. I use a Lumi light in the morning to help wake the brain, or I use my human charger, depending on whether I'm traveling. When in the sun, obviously remove your shoes and connect with the earth. And although it sounds woo-woo, there's a lot of science in it. And hopefully we'll be having the documentary grounding, as I say, launch at the Health Optimisation Summit, so you can know more about that. Use a red light stack, like one of these, which I like to meditate in, and get to LA as much as possible. And those of you that follow me on Instagram, you've seen that this has been the case. I've been more in the States than I've been out of it. You can't blame me. So, further resources. So this is a great book, and this came from Matt Maruca, that came from Jack Kruse, and I was discussing it yesterday with James Carroll at the red light training course I was on, John Ott's book, Health and Light. Read it, you love it. It is a really good book. It's a really, really good book. Dr. Jack Kruse and his work, controversial but great guy in terms of what he's done. Joe McCullough, Dr. McCullough. Luke Story podcast with Matt Maruca, Millennial Edition. Matt's a friend of Dasha and I's, and some of us here actually. He is a 19-year-old boy that got ill, and diets, paleo diets, ketogenic, all these things didn't help him. And when he heard about Jack Kruse's work, he crashed his boot camp in Mexico because he realized that sunlight was so important for him, and he reversed his health issues from it. There's a lot of science in it. So yeah, the Luke Story podcast is absolutely incredible. It's actually my favorite podcast episode I have ever listened to. And it's 3 hours long, but I couldn't stop listening to it. So look that one up. Red Light Rising and Juve, two brands. Red Light Rising, obviously James over here in the blue at the back there. Yeah, so they're the UK one if you want one. Raw Optics, sunglasses, it's Matt Maruca's brand, he's built out, and then Lumi Light or Human Charger. So the final one, and you get the pattern, I hope. So you can boost energy levels immediately, speed up healing by 30%, boost mental clarity within minutes, boost endurance and recovery, improve resilience to injury and exhaustion, enhance skin health, promote blood vessel growth in inflamed area, enhance recovery from infection, and increase white blood cell count, which is obviously super important. Oxygen optimization. I'm glad Kiki's here today. So, I mean, I was knackered. I wouldn't heal. My mental clarity was shite. And I remember sitting in the boardroom at my agency once upon a time, and one of the juniors said to me, "Oh, Tim, what do you think of this? What should we do with this client's work?" And I went, "What do you think?" And she said, "This." I went, "Perfect, yeah." I couldn't think for myself at that point as to what to say, what the answer was. And luckily, I had a team around me that was smart, that I could just say, "Yeah, sure, I agree." I realized that I empowered people, and obviously it helped the team grow because they knew that their boss trusted them. They didn't necessarily understand why I was doing it at the time, but the point is, that's why whenever I say to anyone in my team now, like, I trust your judgment, it's because I truly do, but it's knowing that it empowers people to do stuff. So, I mean, I was lucky to be in that position. I heard Dave Asprey talk about it on the podcast about hyperbaric oxygen therapy. I tried it out and commuted a lot to do it, but it took me a week to have a session of hyperbaric for an hour and realized it wasn't sustainable. So I opened a clinic in London. Now, as I said earlier on, everything we're doing in biohacking is mimicking a natural environment in an unnatural world. Well, this is why it's so important, and here's what I did about it. So oxygen in the atmosphere should be 21%, but in cities it's around 18, and without it we die pretty damn quickly. Lung capacity issues, bad posture, smoking from past lives, guilty. And because it's not immediately noticeable from being starved of oxygen by a little bit, we don't realize how important it is. But if we're starved of it completely, we realize. So because it's not binary, it becomes a problem. So if we're always starved by 20%, we don't realize that we need more. Here's how I hacked it. So, breathing exercise, such as Wim Hof method, Kiki. Being mindful of your breath. We live at 200 miles an hour. We're not supposed to be in a city like this with text messages going off, Instagram notifications, meeting to go to, jumping on flights, this, that, the other. We're not present in our bodies. And meditation, sure, it helps you center yourself and make you be more conscious of your body, but really taking note of your breath and making sure that you're oxygenating your body properly is one way of doing it. Hyperbaric oxygen therapy is using technology. So obviously it dissolves up to 15 times more oxygen in your bloodstream within an hour, which literally helps oxygen get to every nook and cranny of your body. It's like watering a plant with half as much water as it needs. It will live, but it won't flourish. It will have issues. It's the same with the body with oxygen. So if you water the plant fully, it will grow and flourish. That's exactly what happens when you breathe properly or use hyperbaric oxygen therapy. Hyperbaric actually helps you top up your stores so you get back to where you need to when you need to get shit done and fix health issues quickly. The more sustainable version is doing breathing exercises, or if you want to be part of a tribe and community, is obviously doing things like Wim Hof method. To tie in with Wim Hof method, obviously when you jump in a cold ice bath, obviously you're grounding out as well. But also, evolutionary speaking, we're not supposed to be having warm showers every morning to wash in. We're supposed to be jumping in cold lakes that are near our cave. So this all ties into the nature part. But again, we're using technology to mimic all of this. Hydrating properly also, because obviously hydrating properly means that you move oxygen around your body properly, which means you heal from the inside out, which is why it's so synergistic. So, oxygen specialists to explore. Dom D'Agostino, ketogenic diet, and the synergy between ketogenic diet and hyperbaric oxygen therapy. He's got some incredible research work behind him. It's why the ketogenic diet, in my opinion, has got so big, because you can't push back against his science properly, because it is just so thorough. Dr. Paul Harch, who wrote the book, The Oxygen Advantage, is a great book. Dr. Scott Scher, who will be speaking in London, and Wim Hof as well, who I'm working my absolute nuts off with Darsha to get Wim in London for the summit. Like, this is my dream. The last speaker I need to close down. So, Kiki. So, proof that we're using technology to mimic a natural environment in an unnatural world. PEMF, pulsed electronic magnetic frequency, based on the Schumann resonance, which is when we connect with the Earth. Red light therapy, sunset. Blue blocking glasses block out the blue light that wakes our brain up. Wim Hof method, hyperbaric oxygen therapy, grounding, squatty potties. Anyone? We're not supposed to use toilets, you know. Minerals, ice baths, satellites, high intensity training. It's running after an animal to kill it so that you can eat, which is why primal play, wherever Daryl is. Where's Daryl? Oh, there he is. Primal play works so well because it's based on an ancestral life. Blackout blinds to stop sunrise, and the list goes on. Everything is mimicking a natural environment in an unnatural world. That's biohacking. So, that's me. That's the summit. So, I've got a whole load of notes here. I have not got a clue what I wrote. Essentially, we are here today because of these 5 fundamentals, and I've gone down the rabbit hole on many other things as well, but really get these things right, and you have better health. That's it. Time for questions. So has anyone got any questions, or do I get away easy? Oh, yeah, go first. Yeah.
First slide, you had niacin and magnesium.
Yeah. So niacin helps calm the brain. Solgar I use at the moment. 100 milligrams, I bite it in half. 50 milligrams. It helps calm the brain. Especially if you're working on your B12 protocol, methylation and whatnot, it really does calm the brain down massively. So I really like that. I use melatonin if stroke where needed. And what was the other one? Sorry, magnesium. Yeah, so I've tested 4 or 5 different types of magnesium. It actually doesn't make any difference to my sleep anymore because I'm not deficient in it anymore when I look on a cellular level. It's the same with CoQ10 as well. I used to get a massive result from having CoQ10, and then for some reason it stopped doing something to me, and then when I checked on a cellular level I wasn't deficient, and therefore it did nothing. So for people that are deficient, and most people are deficient in some way just because they drink tap water or have taken antibiotics, or they have high levels of metals and they don't even know it. So yeah, so that's one. No worries.
What is your stance on pH level of water we consume, and any advice on filters and sources of food?
There's a difference between pH and alkalinity. So when someone says it's a 9 pH bottle of water, well, it's about how about the alkalinity. Is it like, for instance, I'm trying to think of a good analogy, but basically pH just means what the pH is. Alkalinity means how strong it is. So if you drink something with a high pH and it's not got a lot of alkalinity, then it's not going to make any difference, and your body just counters it straight away anyway. It's like having orange squash but diluted really badly. It's still orange squash. But if you've only got 1 drop of orange in it, it's going to be weak. So that, for me personally, it's not a massive area. I think they talk about the alkaline diet and all these different areas. I think if you've got your gut and liver, hydration and diet down, really you shouldn't need to worry about it. Some people may be the extreme; it's the exception, not the rule. But for me, I've never really focused it on that much for that reason. Yeah, I think actually, I'm trying to think. I think it was.
What do you source your water from?
Sorry?
What do you get your water?
So at home I use a Berkey water filter for the tap water, but it's a proper filter. It's the best one. I guess it's the biohacker standard. And San Pellegrino I like, but that's been recently brought out by Nestle. So I'm not quite sure how good that's going to be for how long. We'll see.
Thank you for talk, Tim. When you were looking at the aura ring scores of sleep, which one do you value most, the REM sleep or the deep sleep? Which one, or both? What are you kind of looking at to improve?
I generally find that you either have one or the other high, not both. And I look for either of them. I mean, I tried to hack it to get it to 40% of either deep or REM sleep. That's really what my goal is. If I get either of those two at that, then I'm pretty cool. Some days when I've studied a lot and I've noticed different patterns, if I study a lot or have a lot of intensive work, my REM sleep will go up. And if I've done more exercise, then my deep sleep will go up. Yeah, so I mean, it's really, I'm really now looking for my resting heart rate and heart rate variability. So resting heart rate down and heart rate variability up, that's the next hack. I've just started exercising and using this body for the first time in a long time. And I'm noticing it fluctuating from an average of 12 heart rate variability, which is horrendous, getting up to about 40. My peak was about 50 before, compared to Sim's 200. So yeah, it's changing quite quickly, so that's the next thing. That was quick. That was very quick. Go.
You started to answer the question I had in my mind. So on the heart rate variability for you, what have you found moves the needle the most in terms of getting it up?
I found running worked really well for me. Heart rate variability increased quite well from that. I think also I've just got an X3 bar as well, so I've been testing out with that, and I've been doing chin-ups. I've been trying to do 10 chin-ups 3 or 4 times a day, which I've done for the last 2 weeks. I found that that's been the best thing that I've done so far. But also having a stressed life, if you've got a load of stuff going on or whatnot, then that generally impacts the heart rate variability a lot. I find that sleeping on the plane, my heart rate variability actually goes up for some reason. My percentage of deep sleep goes up as well. But obviously the length of time isn't that great. So, I mean, there's so many different things, and I haven't noticed a pattern yet, and I'm sure there'll be some software soon that will help me notice the pattern.
So you mentioned that you track 30 different points of data.
35, yeah.
If you could track only 3 of those, which ones would you track?
Well, I stopped recently, very recently, so I could let go of being so particular about things. Sleep score from Aura is probably my number one, and readiness score as well. So those are the two. And then body weight, actually, because my goal is to get to 70 kilos eventually. I've been going between 61 and 62.5, depending on how much water I drink or how many steaks I have in a day.
Yes, about the water to drink. A few years ago, I bought myself a water distiller. There's an argument that if you have distilled water, it kills all the minerals and nutrients out of it.
Yeah.
There's also use of reverse osmosis.
Yeah, yeah.
What would be the best option to explore on that? Because I like the water I drink, the water I get out of my distillers.
It's dead water. It's pretty much dead water. Reverse osmosis, while it's good because it gets rid of all the impurities, is dead water. So I would not use it personally. Again, just by chance, Ben Greenfield's podcast last week, is really good for listening to have a listen and understand a bit more in the deep science on that. But I mean, I like the Berkey water filter, and then I use Totem Sport. And also I've just had a Somovedic. I can't say it sounds rude. It's to do with crystals and energy, and you can actually help charge the water. Ben Greenfield mentioned it on Twitter a couple of weeks ago, and so I dropped them a line and asked them about it. There's actually quite a few studies behind it, although it sounds very woo-woo, but that's a way of making the water live again. So yeah, if you have a look, actually I'm due to do a post on Instagram in the next few days on it. I shared a story out. Did anyone see the post about that green light on my bedside table? Yeah, okay, cool. Yeah, so I'll be sharing out about it this week, but that might be a good thing to look at.
In terms of sleep, something that I've struggled with was wake-up times. So in your experience, have you had any success in reducing that?
Define have problems with wake-up times.
So I track, I've got Fitbit which I use to track, and I see that I quite often wake up at night. Sometimes I realize that I wake up, sometimes I don't. And obviously, the more you wake up...
How dark is your room?
Say again?
How dark is your room?
I've got blackout blinds, yeah.
Is it completely black?
Very close to, yeah. It's gotten better, I think, but it's still something that sometimes...
Have you got LEDs or anything like that on in your room? Have you got, just trying to think, is it noisy if you wake up during the night, or do you have like...
Use earplugs like you do.
Yeah, good. I mean, it could be down to EMFs or your Wi-Fi router or your mobile phone if you've not got that on airplane mode. It could be one of many, many things, but I often find it's about light. The first thing is light. I mean, I'm happy to chat to you about it one-to-one, if you like.
And just one follow-up, that's fine. In terms of practicalities and high street brands, what sort of water would you recommend? I think you mentioned Pellegrino.
I like San Pellegrino. I mean, it's nice. It's not the most hydrating, but it is the best taste for me. I like Fiji water as well, because it's really high in silica, which is great for the gut. Christopher Shea, Quicksilver Scientific, do a gut binder called IMD, intestinal cleanse basically, and that's high in silica, which grabs a lot of the impurities out of your digestive system, and it can help bloating very quickly. So I just like the constant top up of silica. with Fiji as well, but it comes in a plastic bottle, and whenever you take the lid off, it stinks of plastic, which tells me it's been sitting on a ship somewhere or other and getting hot in the sun. So, you know, I question that. 2 more questions.
I just want to expand on what you just mentioned. So you mentioned Wi-Fi and sleep. How are those two connected, and how does Wi-Fi just expand?
We're electrical creatures. We are electrical creatures, and we're not supposed to have all these electronic frequencies going through the air and disturbing us. And considering we track brain waves and what our brain does when we sleep, and what our body responses are, we'll put it to the extreme. Well, actually, there was a image that Luke Story sent me last week, was a guy next to a 4 or 5G tower in a hazmat suit. Hazmat suit, completely radiation proofed. Well, because it's going to fry him. We're electrical creatures. That's electricity. That's frequencies. I mean, it's obvious. Like, I'm actually going to try a Faraday cage next. That's my next thing, just to see how that improves my sleep. I've also got the Somavedic. Sounds like son of a bitch. Yeah, I'm testing that out as well. But they say that they've seen quite a lot of results. They really want a lot of biohackers to be testing that with their Aura data to see how their heart rate variability and resting heart rate changes for it. So yeah, so I mean, I'll report back on that in due course, but yeah. Sure.
I was wondering, in your acts, you had 5. Why is exercise not a fix?
Because I have 5. But the thing is, if, like, put it this way, if I look at it in a hierarchy of what's important, would you consider sleep to be more important than eating on a daily basis? I.e., can you go without sleep for a day? Yeah, for me, I can fast for almost a week without having an issue, as long as I hydrate properly. For me, I can't go without sleep. I mean, I can get away with 5 hours sleep for 1, maybe 2 nights in a row, but I can eat 50% less for a few days quite easily. While nutrition is important, I think you've got to have your sleep sorted first, your hydration, because again, remember, we're an electrical system, we're an electrical creature, and minerals, we eat food to get minerals. We also drink water to get minerals. If we're not getting the minerals from the water, we should be getting them from our food. If you've got a bad gut and you can't get these minerals from your food or nutrients from your food, you've got to get them in somehow, which is why hydration gets them into you quickly. So for me, hydration is a key winner. And you know, they say that you can live without food for X amount of days, but you can't without water. Well, it's because we're an electrical creature, we become knackered. Oral and dental, mainly because it's such an important factor that it goes under the radar, but food issues, especially around current times with social media, we all know that food is a massive issue. I don't need to tell you that something's important, like, you know, to make you remember to do daily things like put your shoes on, you know, like that's obvious. You know, these things are obvious, I think, whereas these 5 points is like, actually take it back to basics, remember these things, and then that's why. But I mean, food is important, definitely, but it's more about the nutrients and making sure that your cells have the right things in them, and I think that hydration does the most part of that for me. Last question. Yep.
What are your thoughts on naps? Why do you sleep in trance?
Oh, what, sorry?
Naps. Thoughts on naps? Why do you sleep in trance?
I can't hear you, sorry.
What are your thoughts on naps?
Naps?
Yes.
Yeah, well, I mean, naps and meditation. So, for instance, Dalai Lama is known as quoting, sleep is the best form of meditation. Well, you shouldn't need to meditate for a day or two, an hour or 2 every day. In my opinion, I think that that's extreme. And this world is for exploring and enjoying, but you need to sleep enough to be able to do that. And I think if you've got your sleep down, you need to meditate less because everything else falls back into line. You still should meditate a little bit to clear your mind because we live in such busy time. And I think for napping is if you're not sleeping properly at night, sure, nap during the day if you can't. But for me, once I'm up, that's it. And when my head hits the pillow, I'm out. And so I like that to be quality in one go, opposed to doing it through bits and pieces through the day. But if you're knackered, sure, have a nap, because it can really help your day. Yeah, that's it. Okay, cool.